I hope you guys are having a beautiful, beautiful week so far. The transfer window, as you can see from the title, just from what's been going on in the last 24 hours, it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon for Liverpool Football Club. I thought we would have slowed down, right? We heard that after getting the Frimpong, the Kirkez, the Verts deals over the line, that we would now look to sell players and then we would go back into the transfer market. But guys, it looks like, we have that definition of opportunistic. It looks like right now we're seeing that we cannot lose out on these two strikers that we know would be big time difference makers for Liverpool. Our top target obviously is Alexander Isak, but that's going to be a very difficult deal to get over the line because Newcastle don't want to sell. He's still young. He has 3 years left on his contract, so they won't be forced to sell unless I think Isak forces the move himself and he hands in a transfer request, for example. But I believe that the reason we've contacted Frankfurt and the reason why we're really getting in that race now for Ugo Ekitike, the striker, 23-year-old, who just turned 23, by the way, I just checked, from Frankfurt, is because Newcastle have been moving and advancing on him. So I believe our point of view right now is, yes, we want Isak. Of course we want Isak. He's our number one. And we're going to try to get Isak to help kind of force that move because, like I said, I don't think it happens unless Isak forces some kind of hand, because why would Newcastle want to sell, right? They're in no position to have to sell unless the player is unhappy. Therefore, I believe that the reason we're seeing this bomba, and I'm going to read you guys the article for those of you that haven't seen it yet. Liverpool have contacted Frankfurt's over the possible signing of Ugo Ekitike. That means having all the details. We know the money's there because all the most reliable sources in terms of David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano have said that we are ready to pounce if Newcastle are willing to sell Isak. And when we say pounce, we're not talking about small money. We're talking about 120, 130 million pounds. That would be breaking the transfer, our biggest transfer fee again after we already did it for Florian Wirtz, so clearly it shows we don't just mean business, we mean historical business in this window, you guys. So it is very, very exciting. Nice to see you, Joseph, who says, hi, Leo, this is so amazing. So what if we don't get Isak? Ekitike is amazing as well. Yeah, guys, that's exactly kind of the energy and what I want to try to get across to you guys as well here is like, it's going to be an incredible piece of business for us either way. Either we go for the ready, proven, but record, major money for Alexander Isak, or like I said, we have our plan B. It's so clear to see that Ugo Ekitike is a player that we've been interested in for a long while now. We've been interested in him for a long while, and now, we're getting all the details on it. But my guess is that we're trying to use this as a kind of power move to say to Newcastle that if they don't let us advance on the Isak deal, that we'll move forward on Ugo Ekitike, that will move forward on their primary target. You know what I mean? And so I think the decision Newcastle will have to make, and this is why I still think the us getting Isak is possible, and I'll explain why. Joseph, by the way, just said, how much will Ekitike cost? He would cost around, my guess, 70 to 80 million pounds, probably, because Newcastle got pretty close apparently to the fee they're looking for, and they bid 64.9 million pounds. That was rejected by Frankfurt. So my guess is anything between 70 to 80 million pounds probably gets it over the line that Frankfurt would have to accept. But here's what I was saying. From the Newcastle perspective, let me know what you guys think. And get voting in the poll as well, because I'm asking you guys, who do you think will sign? I didn't ask who do you want to sign, because I know if I said who do you want to sign, you guys would say Isak. I said who do you think will sign if you had to predict. Okay, I'm not asking who you would rather sign. Anyways, I think the predicament that Newcastle are in is either they sell Isak to Liverpool this summer, and it seems like we'd be willing to fork out between 120 to 130 million pounds. That's the fee it would take to get Isak, and we're ready for it. We're ready to break the record again, right? The transfer record fee. Here's the thing though. If they decide they don't want to sell, then there's a chance that next summer they'd have to sell for a lot less because the player would have 2 years left on his contract. And there's a chance that he might not be happy because he's not able to make that upgrade move to Liverpool. You know, as great as Newcastle is as a football club, and I think the project that's going on at Newcastle is really, really impressive. And I could see Newcastle raising it up a gear even more so next season. And they already had a great season last season. You can't dispute the fact that Liverpool's a step up from Newcastle. We're Premier League champions. Look at the history. We're going to go for the Champions League next season. He has a chance to play with Wirtz and Salah. Like, with all due respect to Newcastle fans, and I have a lot of respect for Newcastle fans because I think that fan base is unbelievable. One of my dreams is to go to St. James Park, actually. It's probably my number one bucket list for an away day in the Premier League. But you can't dispute that it's an upgrade, if you get what I'm saying, to go to Liverpool. So they wouldn't allow him to kind of make that move. If they were to sell him, like I said, for the 120 to 130 million pounds, then the good thing for them is it would put them in a really good position for PSR, and it would mean they could reinvest that money into their squad. So they could get Ekitike, who's even younger. Like I said, he only just turned 23. Very young, Ekitike. So they would have their striker right away, and they would still have 50 to 60 million to spend in another position. You know, probably a defender. So that's what I mean. Newcastle, I think the reason why I can see the Isak deal happening is because they don't want to lose on their top target, Ekitike, because we're ready to swoop in. And at the same time, it could put them in a really good position for PSR and still bring a top player in Ugo Ekitike and have all this leftover money. So that's why I think there's a chance they let Isak go. But again, if they don't, then we also, it looks like, are so serious in the Ekitike move. And of course, he would choose us over Newcastle. That, like, again, we're Premier League champions. We're in a very, very strong position. Again, you ask Ekitike, would he rather play with Gordon and Elenga or Wirtz and Salah? I think you probably have your answer very quickly. You know what I mean? Again, with all due respect to Newcastle. But that's kind of the positions that we're in, you guys. And I think it's going to be very, very it's going to be very interesting to kind of to see how this unfolds. I'm someone that's going to hold my hands up, you know. I can't say much about Ugo Ekitike because I've probably seen 4 games of his. What just annoys me, and it's so easy obviously to do this in a chat because sometimes you don't have a face to your profile and stuff like that, but to have strong opinions about things when you haven't truly watched a player, I think that's so unfair. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not the type of person that's going to say, oh, I know everything about Ugo Ekitike. I know his stats. I know the previous clubs he's played for. I know his age. But like I said, I don't watch a lot of the Bundesliga. I just don't have time. I'm too honed in on Liverpool. But like I said, why do I think it would be a good transfer? Because like I just mentioned, Newcastle have very good recruitment and their number one target is Ugo Ekitike. So clearly they rate him that highly because they're willing to break a club record transfer fee to get him. And not just that, like I mentioned before, Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards are some of the best in the business, and the fact they also really want him, and the fact that he's our plan B if we don't get Alexander Isak. And we know Alexander Isak is elite. He was maybe the best forward last season. He's so well-rounded as well. But the fact that he's the number 2 option tells us how good he is, you know, and they would have done their homework. Again, I trust them way more than even I trust someone who's watched maybe 25 games of Ugo Ekitike, because they have a team, a recruitment team, a scouting team that would have watched a lot of his games. Trust me, we wouldn't be throwing around these kind of funds or interested in the type of price tag that this player would cost if we weren't confident that he was a top player. You know what I mean? And that's why, you know, for people that are saying, oh, he's not that good, I'm personally not going to listen to that. You know what I mean? Because like I said, the people who are in charge know a lot more than we do. Trust me. But again, what I'm just so freaking hyped about is overall what we were saying before. We truly mean business this window, you guys. We mean business, and it is so exciting